Hello there. What's going on, everybody? In case you didn't catch my early little teaser video yesterday, Star Wars Squadrons has now officially been announced by EA, and we're getting a trailer for it Monday. So we're going to talk about everything that we know, which is very little, and do some speculation as well as some wish listing for this game. Also, let me remind you, still have a few days left to enter to win the giveaway. All you have to do is be a subscriber and leave a comment. You're automatically entered to win that $25 Amazon gift card giveaway. I'll be announcing the winner to that next week, so make sure you watch my videos all the way to the end. All right, so that being said, we actually got a bigger image preview for Star Wars Squadrons, which clearly shows an MC-75 over here and a Star Destroyer up there, which kind of answered the question, will there be any capital ships? If they have capital ships on the poster for the game, there almost certainly will be capital ships for the game. So that's exciting. Whether or not you're actually going to get to fly them, or if they're going to be maybe home bases of operations, are some things that are still remain to be seen. But I know a lot of people do really want a single player mode or a story or campaign type of mode involved somehow, and I mean that just makes a lot of sense. That was very, very successful with Jedi Fallen Order, so I think that they will probably have some type of single player mode, and having maybe a capital ship that's some type of carrier as your base of operations, that would seem likely. Now, and this is nice because earlier this was kind of the preview that we got, that was kind of leaked on Xbox. It was kind of cropped a little bit to fit like a banner, and we saw this right here, and we weren't, I wasn't initially sure if that was supposed to be an MC-75 or if it was supposed to be something else, because we only got to see a little bit of it, and we certainly couldn't see the Star Destroyer up above. So it's nice to be able to see the whole thing right there, which I'm very excited about. Now, what we do see is we do see 4 starfighters for each side. We see X-Wings, Y-Wings, A-Wings, and U-Wings, which is exciting. Well, technically, I guess 1 X-Wing, right? Yeah, but and then for the Empire, we've got a TIE Interceptor, we've got TIE Fighters, we've got a TIE Reaper, and of course the bombers. And like some people have pointed out, and I initially missed this right away because I was so overwhelmed with hype, the TIE Bomber that you can see in the helmet up here, as well as possibly the one up by the Star Destroyer, are backwards. They're flying away from the fight, which has had a couple of people kind of scratching their heads and said, wait a second. You guys are kind of handed the keys to the entire monopoly of Star Wars games, and you got the bomber backwards. Like, what's going on here, guys? Like, were you just like did you just say, hey, we want a picture of some fighters, and like you did a quick Google search on what it might look like, and it's just it has some people kind of thinking, oh, here goes EA again. So that's kind of a rough one. But interesting thing, though, is if we are getting a lot of this stuff, now there's a lot of stuff in here that specifically was made canon in Rogue One, namely the TIE Reaper, which is this carrier one up here, and that was the ship that would actually, like, was more like a ground fighter that would drop off Death Troopers on the ground. It's like a transport. Also the U-Wing over there, which kind of performed the same general role, and as well as the MC-75 that we see, that capital ship that Admiral Raddus warped in, which presumably means that we do expect to be able to fly the Battle of Scarif in this particular game. And that seems pretty reasonable. We didn't really get that in Battlefront 2. They kind of abandoned Battlefront 2 pretty much completely, which like as far as the starfighter, combat in Battlefront 2. And the thing is, it started out with a lot of potential. I really enjoyed Battlefront 2's starfighter combat at launch. It had a couple of different fighters, not that many, but it had a couple of different fighters, and it had a lot of really fun dynamic things, especially in the Fondor shipyard map, which was awesome, and had. It had like capital ships flying around, which was really cool, and so it really added a beautiful element to the game. Now, another thing that we don't get in this poster art is we don't see larger ships, not larger starfighters. Like, there's a noticeable absence of the Millennium Falcon, which is pretty curious because the Millennium Falcon is usually in just about every game. And so is the Slave One, right? Like those are like very like for larger ships, those are two of the most recognizable. So it makes me think, are they going to have any kind of bounty hunter ships, or maybe that's something that'll come later? We really don't know much about what they're going to include. Of course, my biggest complaint is there's no B-Wing here, and the B-Wing is my favorite Star Wars ship. There's also no TIE Advanced up there, so there's definitely room for more Rebel and Imperial ships that are both recognizable and fan favorites. But the fact that there's no Millennium Falcon makes me wonder, if we're going to play in the Battle of Scarif, are we going to get the Ghost? Because the Ghost is pretty recognizable and was also at the Battle of Scarif in a number of scenes. And I think a lot of people would like to see it. Star Wars Rebels was really popular. I've even seen speculation from some of you excellent folks on Twitter and people that have sent me messages suggesting that maybe we'll see Hera Syndulla as maybe a flight instructor for your single-player campaign mode or something like that. I would love to see an opportunity to have additional characters, especially the voice actors from Star Wars Rebels come back and put some voices on this game. And since this is a newer game, obviously they're going to want to do things from probably lean a little bit more on the newer Disney canon stuff. And Star Wars Rebels was such a big hit with so many people, it stands to reason that the Ghost could eventually show up. Again, if EA's got this, it's probably going to be a game that has lots of updates. If you look at what they did with Star Wars Battlefront 2, years and years and years and years and years, no other games, just incremental patches to that. Problem with that was that they were almost all of them were for the ground combat game, and there was very, very little done to the space combat game. So that much was kind of a problem for a lot of folks, and it was a problem for me also. Now, as far as what are we hoping for, right? First thing that kind of jumped in a lot of people's mind is the old Rogue Squadron games. They were incredible. Like to start off with an N64, I think went up through the GameCube. All of those games were hugely popular and were amazing, and they really have never come back and done those. And those were like fan favorites by a long shot. And I mean, we could go way back farther into like the X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. And I know a lot of people want a dedicated space simulator. And I get that, because that would be really cool. But I have the feeling if EA is doing it, it's not going to be an ultra-realistic or hyper-realistic space simulator. I think we're probably going to get something a little bit more like an arcade-style shooter. At best, maybe a hybrid mode that has a little bit of like shield control and energy manipulation. But I don't see us getting a full-blown super technical space sim. For Star Wars. I think what we're going to get is probably something that's going to lean a little bit more towards arcade, and if so, Rogue Squadron is definitely a possibility. Something in that vein, something that kind of feels like Rogue Squadron. I don't know if we're going to get, and I think one of the big things is from a lot of the Rogue Squadron games, a lot of times you were still kind of on a 2D plane, almost like Star Fox. For Nintendo stuff, you really weren't. It wasn't free flying throughout space. It always kind of leveled out, and it did the same thing pretty much in Battlefront too. It would usually sort of level you out, but you had at least a limited degree of control, and I liked that. But again, the Battlefront 2 was a pretty high bar as far as an arcade style space shooter at the time. And that's the thing is, I think what people are really hoping for is, as long as it's better than the Battlefront 2 space aspect, then I think we can call it a win. Of course, that's a low bar to set, because it was so long ago and they did so little with it. And this is a dedicated game that appears to be 100% dedicated to dogfighting and or space combat. So, like, it had better be, it had better be better than a bonus feature for a different game, So I recognize that that's a really low bar, but I also want to do a throwback to you guys. Let's go back to 2014. Now, this is a long time ago. 2014, there was a game that came out called Attack Squadrons Beta. It never got out of beta. It was called Attack Squadrons, and I was in this beta, and it was a really cool game. It was a straight-up dogfighting game, and the claim to fame that caught people's attention was the custom paint jobs, the Imperial logo on the TIE Fighter wings. This one was basically, and it got canceled. It was just around the time where Disney, was getting rid of Legends and taking all the EU, putting it in Legends, and they canceled a whole lot of projects that were already under development from before Disney bought Lucasfilm. And this was one of those that just didn't make it all the way through. But I was in love with this game. I was pretty good at this game too, at least in the beta format. There was only one map when it first launched, but then they eventually added a Death Star map, and that one was actually kind of cool too. But it was pretty much just dogfighting and earning experience at the end of matches and upgrading your ship, getting credits, buying more ships. I believe the intent for this one was to have microtransactions, which was more popular at the time. At 2014, it was very popular. But I loved the feel of this game, and it had that customizability as well, but it was done in between rounds. Like, you could go back into your hangar, like, hey, how many ships do I own? Okay, I got a starter X-Wing, a starter T-65 X-Wing. Oh, and I've got I got a stealth T-65 X-Wing. That one's got better hull capacity and, a higher generator. And you can buy all kinds of things. You can buy generators, torpedoes, engines, shielding, all that stuff, and give those incremental upgrades, and that would be the difference maker in your ship when you went in. And you could also get paint jobs. And so this one was nice. In that it had also a decent selection of ships. It started, at least in beta, it had like all the basic fighters, and then a couple of, like, it had a YT-1300 and a Fire Spray 31, which basically the ship models for the Slave One and the Millennium Falcon. So it added those in at one point also. But it was fun. Like, I like the space dogfighting, especially when there's wreckage of old ships to kind of fly through and places to kind of take cover. And this one did it really, really well. It was going to be great. Like, the graphics probably weren't up to that EA standard, so I think if we got something kind of like this with upgraded graphics, and I mean, the graphics weren't bad. And again, I don't need great graphics. I value gameplay over graphics, but if EA is doing it, I'm also expecting the graphics to be really nice. And I do actually absolutely plan on covering this on Monday once they do the full reveal. That'll probably be like an afternoon or early evening video from me. So look for more video content about this on Monday once we have more information to show you. And once it eventually comes out, I'll definitely be streaming this. I may be covering video games a little bit more, depending on how awesome this game is. And I do love space shooters. I just hope I hope there's at least a really fun arcade mode to be able to just jump in, do some shooting, and jump out. Hopefully it's not like... I'm not a big fan of games that have this round requirement. Like, this is going to be a 1-hour round, so if you sit down to play, you have to commit to a minimum of an hour, maybe 2 hours. Like there are some games that like have those long rounds, and I want quicker gameplay and maybe a longer gameplay as an option. But I'm really hoping that there's some ability to take control of capital ships, even smaller capital ships like Corvette-sized ships or even frigates. If there's a Nebulon B in this thing, that'd be so cool. But we shall see. All right, guys, that's all I've got for you today. I want to thank you all so much for watching. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Or if you see somebody else's suggestion that you agree with, give it a thumbs up as well. If you like the video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down in the comment section. And don't forget to click that subscribe button. Click that bell for alerts. Big thanks to my patrons on Patreon. You guys are amazing. And thank you so much. And as always, have a great day.